Okay, hey, welcome to this week's episode of Keeping It Real with Kent. Got a topic today that I think is very important that people understand as they're moving into the purchase of a home or the sale of a home in any county, but especially here in Ellis County, right? Is that it's time to figure out how do you actually pick a real estate agent. Okay, so picking the real estate agent can be, a very critical piece of this. I don't think people really understand everything that goes into the purchase of a home. We're talking about a contract that's written by a bunch of lawyers out of the state of Texas that has, a minimum of 16 pages to it that all have something critical on each page. And so if we don't understand those contracts and how they're put together, then the process can be just a problem the whole way through. If we get a real estate agent that does understand them, it makes everybody's life easier. So one of the things I'm going to go over with you today is just a few questions as you're talking to people and you're trying to decide if I'd like to use this real estate agent or not. Some of the questions that I feel like you need to ask. All right. Question number one is simply, how long have you been a real estate agent, right? Time doesn't always mean everything in real estate, because I know some agents that, have had their license for a year or two and done 30, 40, 50 transactions. And I've known agents that have their license for 10 years and only done 5 transactions. But it's a good question to ask. How long have you been around? How long have you been in real estate? As a realtor, when did you get licensed? And, just some simple question like that. That's the first thing, is you want to know that about them. Okay. The second thing you want to know is, are you full-time or are you part-time? Okay. Now, I'm not saying that there's a problem with either way, but you just need to understand what their availability is, right? If they're a full-time agent, you would think they may be the most available, but sometimes they're not. If they're really, really, really busy and have a lot of clients out there, it may be better to go with somebody that has a little more availability to you. What you want to know about a part-time person is whether or not they're available during the times of the week that you need them to be there. So let's say you need to go to an inspection. That's going to happen sometime between 8 in the morning and 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So the agent needs to be available to come and see those and be a part of that with you as you go through it. Title companies are open 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. So you got to have an agent that's available to be there. Even if they're part-time, that doesn't mean that they can't be there. So you need to ask these questions, right? These are questions that are very critical to this process going forward and it being an easy thing for you to do. So be sure you understand how they are. The next thing you want to know is do you work primarily with buyers or primarily with sellers, right? And so you'll see a lot of agents do both, and that's a pretty normal thing, especially in this part of the country, is most of them do both, but some of them don't. Some of them specialize. So if you're looking to purchase a home, you want to make sure you're working with somebody that understands the purchasing process. They're the ones that are going to start the negotiations for you, make sure that the contract is filled out properly and that it's done in a manner that makes good sense for you. Each one of those real estate agents has taken an oath to say that they will do a fiduciary responsibility to take care of you through this transaction. So as that being said, we need to make sure that we have somebody that understands how to walk that process through and understands where you negotiate, where you don't negotiate, where you ask for things, where you don't ask for things, to make sure you get to the day. Because at the end of the day, all we really want is a willing buyer, a willing seller, and a closed deal at the end where everybody has a smile on their face. So it's critical that you're working with somebody that understands that process and moves them through. So we'll be right back after these messages.
Hey, I'm Haley Bush-Kurth with the Better Together Realty Group. We are powered by EXP, and we are your local experts. We are right here in Ellis County. Our office is in Midlothian, and we're here to serve you with all of your real estate needs. Whether you're a first-time home buyer or maybe an empty nester or anywhere in between, we can help you with the purchase and the sale of any property. And we also help investors grow their portfolios as well as manage their properties for them. So we are truly full-service real estate right here in Ellis County. We would love to help serve you or anyone that you know reach their home goals. You can reach my whole team at 972-246-8297. You can call or text that number. You can always email us at team@bettertogetherrg.com, or you can stop by our office right here in Midlothian.
Hi, my name is Caitlin Bush with Mid-America Mortgage Southwest here in Midlothian. Whether you are purchasing a home or refinancing, we are here to help you every step of the way. Whether you're a first-time home buyer or you've done the purchasing process multiple times before, we treat our customers like family here at Mid-America Mortgage Southwest, and we will walk you through every step of the way to make this transaction as smooth as possible. You can reach me at 214-598-7839 or send an email to kbush@mamsw.com.
Well, welcome back. So we'll keep keeping it real with Kent here. And the next question I would ask as I'm working with a agent is, are you an individual agent or do you work on a team? Okay, they both have their benefits, right? You want to work with people that you communicate the best with and you feel the most comfortable with. So if you're working with an individual agent, they'll usually have somebody that helps them out a little bit, but they do most of the communication with you throughout the whole process. They're going to talk to you about the contract and the inspections and the appraisals and all the things that we have to do to get you to the closing date. But now if you work with a team, it can be a little different. You'll start out with somebody, if you're looking to buy, you'll start out with a buyer's agent who will then possibly hand you off to a transaction coordinator, which is a good thing, right? Because that's what that person does every day. So it's not an issue, it's just something you need to understand. When we first get started, we're talking to this agent, and then all of a sudden we're talking to somebody else, and it kind of sometimes can be uncomfortable for the consumer. But, as long as you understand and you've had these questions and you've talked to them about them and they've told you, yes, this is our process. We start with the buyer, we go to the transition coordinator, and then we go in at the very end and we'll have a closer come help you close. That's okay as long as you know that's what's going on. So that's a critical thing to find out as you're working through this process. And you got to go with the ones that you feel the most comfortable with. If you want to work with one individual the whole way through, most likely you're going to look for just a single agent. If you're okay with the process of moving through and having more than one person working on your file and communicating with you, then the teams are perfectly fine. So I'm not saying there's one's better than the other, because they're not. It's just different. It's just how do you like to be communicated with and how do you want the process to go for you. So be sure you're thinking about that and you ask that question. The next thing you want to do is you want to ask for a list of references, right? Most real estate agents are very good at getting references, so you want to get a list of references, and you want to get a list of references that agent says that you have no problem picking up the phone and giving them a call. So be sure you're asking for the references that you need. Make sure that you check those references, right? Pick up the phone and call them. People are going to tell you what kind of experience they had with this agent. And buying and selling a home is an experience, guys. It's the largest individual purchase that most all of us will ever make, right? And so if that's the case, it's the most valuable asset we own. We want that to be a good experience as we go through it. I can't tell you how many times I've had conversations with people over the years and the experience just wasn't what it should have been. And mostly the reason for that was because the personalities of the people involved didn't work well enough. And it's because we just said, oh, I'll take whoever it is out there. You didn't interview an agent. You didn't find out anything about them. I get it. A lot of you have family members that got their real estate license, especially during the past year with the COVID and everybody being down and having time to do things like that. So, so there's a lot of people out there that may or may not be ready or may or not be the right person for you personally. So you want to make sure those personalities click and you're working towards a great experience. Purchasing or selling the home should be a great experience. There's no reason for it not to. So make sure that you're understanding that process as you move forward. And then you want to make sure you understand their availability. That's one of the things I've been trying to teach agents for years and years is that go ahead when you meet with somebody, tell them when you're available. Lay the pattern out for them. I mean, mine was real simple when I was listing and selling every day. I worked Monday through Friday, 9 to 6 to 6:30. I worked Saturdays from 10 to 3, and I didn't work on Sundays. But we had that conversation the first day when we sat down, right? So having that conversation, now I'm not saying that's what all real estate agents do. That's what I did, right? But having that conversation in the beginning makes all the difference in the world. You now have the ability to have and understand when people are going to be available or not. And you're not available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at your job. And most people that sell real estate really don't have that ability either. They have lives and things going on also, but they want to help. And so they're really, really, really good at answering phones when they really probably shouldn't be. So keep that in mind when you're talking to them. Next thing you want to know is what's the best way to reach you, and that's what I want to know as an agent. I want to know the best way for me to reach you as a consumer. Do you like a phone call? Would you rather work by text? Do you work better by email? I mean, I don't care if it's smoke signals. I just need to know what it is so that I can do it, right? And so be sure you're having that conversation with your agent. Your agent needs to be able to communicate with you in the way that's best for you, not what's best for them. And so make sure you have that conversation of how are we going to communicate, especially during the day. I mean, you think about some people, they can't answer a phone during work hours. I mean, they just based upon what they do for a living, they can't. So be sure that you're having that conversation so that you understand when you do need to communicate, you have the ability to do it, and we know how we're going to respond, and we know how long that response is going to take to come back. As a manager for years, I would get phone calls from people, and they'd say, "My agent won't call me back," and I'm like, "Okay, when's the last time you reached out to them?" "Well, it's been over an hour." Well, okay, that's not realistic, And so if it had been 3 days, then that's a problem. An hour is not real. So you got to be realistic in what you do. But if you understand it and you've had the conversations before you ever get involved, then you'll know. All right. Now here's the big thing: is how is the agent going to be paid? And most people don't. If they've never sold a house, or they're first time buyers or first time sellers, sometimes they don't understand this process of how a real estate agent gets paid. I can remember having young couples get in the car with me to go look at homes, and they think I'm getting paid by the hour to drive them around, show them houses, right? Well, it really doesn't work like that. Now, we've got so many different business models out there right now. Everything from your iBuyers, which are the Redfins and the Zillows of the world. Zillow's out now, but those kind of things, they come in and they'll do a big buy on your house. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm saying that's what it is. That's one way to do it, right? Then you've got some smaller brokerages that are more boutique styled, and that's okay. They're good, but you got to understand how does that broker pay his agent, right? And so the way it really works in Texas, and I don't think people ever all realize this, is that when you hire a real estate agent, that agent either holds a license as a licensee or as a broker. Okay. The only person that can be paid from a real estate transaction in the state of Texas is a broker. Okay, so everything goes to the broker. The broker then pays the agent. And a lot of times I think, you see those percentages come up, and you look at it and go, man, that's a lot of money. Well, there's also a lot of things being paid out of that. So you got to keep that in mind when you're talking to that agent about it. Now, you'll hear people say a lot of times that the seller pays all the commissions. Well, that's kind of true. I mean, that's an accounting thing, so it looks like that's the way it happens. But really, all the commissions come out of the loan or the cash purchase of the house. So that's where they're going to come from. So you want to make sure you understand that as a buyer and that as a seller, those are part of the things that are going to come off the top. And so don't let that go down the road and mislead you. Now, are commissions negotiable? Absolutely are. Everything in a real estate transaction is negotiable. So that's every place that there's anywhere to even think about spending money. It has the ability to be negotiated, okay? I'm not saying you should always do that, but it does, right? Most of the time, agents don't really negotiate a lot. Their brokers don't allow them to negotiate a lot because there's a certain amount of monies that have to be made to keep everything going. You got to keep the lights on and the copiers working and the internet up and everything, so everybody can get these transactions done. But you want to understand the process, and you want to understand who's being paid. You'll find a lot of times out there in this market, especially in the crazy market we're in right now, it'll pop up and say, hey, it's a for sale by owner. Well, there's only a couple reasons somebody does for sale by owner. One, they don't see the value in what a real estate agent does, okay, and that's probably because at some point in time they had a bad experience, which I understand. All right. But the second thing is you got to make sure who's paying the agent at the end of the day. If the seller says I'm not paying the agent, and if the agent's done his job properly and helped you get into a buyer's representation agreement, you're paying them. So that's how that's written. So let's make sure you want to have these conversations long time before you go in there, and you don't want to come to a closing table and go, what do you mean there's thousands of dollars to be paid here that I didn't know anything about, right? So I guess what really today's lesson or story is about is make sure that you have conversations, make sure that you're talking to people. I mean, there's so much information online right now. There's no reason you can't go in and just go in and Google and get you a list of things asking 10 things would be better than asking nothing, right? They may, even if they're not the best 10 questions, but they're questions that get a conversation started. And that's the thing that I think we need to understand is when we're dealing with agents and we're dealing with clients and we're dealing with brokers, there's all these people involved. There's an agent, there's a client, there's a seller, there's a buyer, there's a title company, there's an inspector, there's an appraiser, there's a loan officer. I mean, you start trying to put all this stuff together and it can become jumbled. So be sure that you take the time to interview the agent when you get a chance, and that'll be it for this week. So you guys have a great week. Hopefully that was what you needed to hear. If you ever need anything, you can always go to kentbush.com, or you can give me a holler and I'll help you find the right person. So have a great week.